There was an engaged couple getting everything ready for their wedding and their wedding reception. And there was a woman who was known for her skill at baking and decorating wedding cakes. And they went to visit with her, and because the soon-to-be bride and groom were very devoted to the scriptures, they wanted a passage, a verse from the Bible on that wedding cake. And they chose the first letter of John, chapter 4, verse 18, which read, "Love has no room for fear. Love casts out fear." Well, it was their wedding day, and they came to their reception and saw that cake for the first time. The woman knew a whole lot about cake baking and decorating, but she wasn't so good with the Bible. Instead of the passage from the first letter of John, she opened to the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verse 18, and on the cake she had inscribed, "You have had 5 husbands, and the man you are with is not your husband." A quote from today's gospel about Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman at the well. Samaritans and Jews did not get along well together. And Jesus had stopped. He was tired from the journey. The apostles went off to town to bring some food back. And Jesus sat down by that well. And the gospel says it was noon. A Samaritan woman came to draw water from that well, and Jesus said to her, "May I have a drink, please?" She was astounded, and it was an unusual scene. She was there by herself at noon. The townspeople would have come before sunrise, when it was still cool, and they would have gotten water for the whole day. And while they were there at the well, waiting their turn, they would have discussed current events, and probably, like people still do today around the coffee cups and water coolers, exchanged a little bit of gossip. This woman was not there because she was probably shunned by the townspeople. So she went at midday in the sun when nobody else would be there, so she wouldn't have to endure their looks and their remarks. And then she was really startled when Jesus, a Jewish man, asked her, a Samaritan woman, for a drink of water. And Jesus says to her, "If you knew the gift of God, if you knew who was asking you for a drink of water, you would have said to him, 'Give me living water.'" Oh, that struck a chord with her. Living water. So I'll never thirst again. Give me this water, and then I don't have to come back to this well. And then Jesus says to her, "Well, first, go call your husband and come back with him." You can picture her getting very nervous, maybe looking down at the ground and shuffling her feet a little bit, and then saying pretty softly, "I don't have a husband." And then Jesus looking into her heart and saying, "You've already had 5 husbands, and the fellow you're living with is not your husband. You've spoken accurately." Notice, Jesus did not shun her. He didn't dismiss it like it wasn't anything at all, but he saw in her something redeemable. He saw in her something lovable. Everybody else had shut her out, but Jesus, knowing everything about her, still loved her. And he included her in the circle of his own love. And then she changed the subject. And wouldn't you and I do the same thing? She was uncomfortable. So she said, I know you're a prophet, and we worship God on this mountain, and you Jewish people worship God in Jerusalem. Jesus listens, and then he says to her, Woman, there's going to come a day when we worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. Notice, Jesus called her woman. Now, in our society, that could come across rather rudely. If you're trying to call after somebody and you shout out, woman, that doesn't set right. We would expect madam, ma'am, miss, not woman. But in Jesus' own day, that expression meant something different than it does to us. Woman meant special lady. Special lady. That's what Jesus calls this woman who had been shunned by the rest of the town, who had been excluded by everybody else. He says, special lady, a day is going to come when we don't worship the Father on this mountain or in Jerusalem. A new day is coming. Woman, special lady.